Okay, so my testimony starts out with I was always looking for the perfect guy. Okay, and a heart. Okay, that's awkward. Okay, so I'm gonna start off with the very beginning. I was born in Las Vegas, Nevada. Okay, Sin City, you guys, big time. And my mom was 15 years old, and my dad was 17, still in high school, freshman and junior. Okay, my dad did not want me right off the bat. He said to my mom to just have an abortion and get it over with. And thankfully, my mom chose to keep me. and And right there, my mom made that very clear to me that my dad did not want me. And that was okay because my family wanted me. And so I ended up living with my grandmother in Las Vegas. But unfortunately, in this house, it was surrounded with drugs, sex, and alcohol. Okay? So it was not the perfect environment. It was not anywhere that I wanted to be as a child. My father never came to visit me. And my mom was in Italy because she was in the Air Force. And so I was in this house for 9 years of my life. But the worst part about it was when I was 6 years old, one of my uncles that was living with us started to sexually abuse me. Okay? In the middle of the night, he just came into my room and started to hurt me. And then I tried to speak out. As a little girl, I realized that this was wrong, and I wanted someone to protect me, and I wanted someone to be there for me. But no one wanted to listen to me, and no one wanted to hear what I had to say. And so I spoke out, and my uncle found out. And so he would threaten my life each time, but I still fought. I still fought because I wanted to be defended. I wanted someone to stand up for me because I knew I was worth it. Okay, as a 6-year-old little girl, and this went on for 3.5 years. And it got so bad to the point to where my uncle actually sold me for his drugs. And I wish that I could make this up right now because it was horrible. And this went on until I was 9.5 when my mom and my adopted dad came from Italy and picked me up. And they took me to Italy with them. And as a little girl, you're going to a foreign country. You're going to love this. You're going to love the fact that you're finally with your mother and you finally got that love and that peace that you thought you were always going to get. And so I thought. But my fairy tale ended when I started to realize that my adopted dad wasn't a dad at all. He started to verbally abuse me. And the fact that he would tell me, you aren't worth anything. Why are you even here? I don't see why you're even doing anything. And so I took this at mouth, words just coming at me. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words may never hurt me. Okay? And I kept that up until we moved to San Antonio. And my adopted dad hated it there so much that he took all of his anger out on me. As an 11-year-old girl, I got the anger of someone who was 27 years old and that was holding all this anger in. And I tried so hard to be so perfect because I thought if I was perfect in school, if I got straight A's, if I was on the yearbook committee, if I was first chair in band, if I was in choir and I was up front and I got a solo, that might make him love me. That might make him accept me for me. But it wasn't enough. So every day I would go home and he would tell me one more thing about myself. And I would go in and I would look in the mirror and I would tell myself that over and over again. I would say, you aren't worth anything. And then the next day I would come home and he would tell me that again. And it would always get worse. And the insults would just get worse and worse. And this pattern went on for about 1.5 years until I found out that one of my uncles had committed suicide. And my family had completely lied to me about it. Said it was a complete accident, didn't want me to find out at all. Well, this person was the person I was closest to in my family, the person that was always there for me no matter what. So I put all that blame on myself, and I stuffed it even more. And I felt like it was all my fault because I left Las Vegas, because I left the pain and the hurt I was in. And I just kept stuffing it. And the part that set me overboard was when my mom told me I could not go back to Vegas and be at his funeral. So I started journaling because I didn't know what else to do with my feelings. And I was journaling very hateful and mean things. And my mom went into my journal one day and she started reading it. And she pulled me out of school and she took me to a therapist because my mom wasn't really a mom. When you have a child that early in your life, you never really know what a mom is. And so she took me to the therapist, and the therapist said, well, maybe that child just needs to go into a mental hospital. And my mother ended up putting me into that mental hospital without a thought, without anything. Automatically just put me in like that. And this is where I want to stop right now. And I want you guys to talk in your small groups about how you handle things. Because the way I handled things is I wrote. Because I knew I couldn't hold it in anymore. And that is something that I really want you guys to talk about and really share. Because that is something that is so powerful. Because the more you stuff it and the more you try to hold it in, the more it's going to hurt you. So, when I first went into the mental hospital, I was completely thrown off. Now, this isn't like the movies where it's kind of fantasized. You are put in and you have someone that gives you medication for things that you really don't think is wrong with you. And then you sleep in this area where they go through all your stuff daily. You don't have your own room. You have no door, okay? And there's about 15 other people that live in the same corridor as you. And you go to a therapist like 5 times a day. You take pills like 3 times a day. You eat openly in public. Like, there's so many rules set in place. And so I was thrown off going into this. I had no idea why I was in there. And so I was in there, and of course I was trying to be friendly, and I made friends with all these girls, and I started to learn about different ways they handled their problems. And I was like, oh, wow, like, I don't have to just write, you know? They told me about how to cut. Like, yeah, like, this is totally why I got in here. Like, I was cutting, and, you know, I learned, you know, I could do this to my wrist, and I didn't have to do that, or you could hide it this way. And I was, like, really, like, intrigued and kind of wondering, like, why these people would do this. And I didn't understand, and it really didn't hit me. And then I got released from the hospital, and I went home back into the same environment I was in before. And then I started to realize what those girls were saying, the things they couldn't handle, so they started to cut. And that's what I did. I started to cut myself because I couldn't handle the pain that was inside of me. I couldn't handle the things that people were telling me on a daily basis about how awful I was. And then come to find out, all the kids at school found out I was in the hospital that week. So the threats at school just got worse. And so I went home, and I started to cut even worse. And my mom found them. So my mom's immediate reaction was to put me back in the hospital. And so I went in the hospital, and I was totally resistant to it all. And my mom came to see me multiple times, and, you know, she felt bad at first. And then I got released again, and the same pattern happened. I went in and out of the mental hospital 6 times, you guys. And after that second visit, my mom stopped seeing me. My mom stopped caring. And my adopted dad, he didn't even care. He didn't even want to hear about that. He just wanted to keep saying those threats to me. He wanted to keep telling me how awful I was. He wanted to tell me how ugly of a person I really was, but he never knew me. And that part hit the worst, because I just went back to school, and I kept hearing those awful things about myself that I knew weren't true, but no one told me otherwise. And so after the last time I was in the mental hospital, I realized that it was enough, that I couldn't handle this anymore, that I couldn't go back to that home, and I couldn't keep cutting, and I didn't want to be in that way anymore. So the mental hospital told me that there was this other option, a group home. Now, how many of you actually know what a group home is? Okay. So a group home is like a big house full of people, and you have 2 parents, well, a couple that's married, and they are Christian. And before you can even get in, you have to do an interviewing process. And so they actually ask you all these questions about what's wrong with you, why do you need to be here? And during that interview process, they were asking questions, and one of the questions was, have you ever been sexually abused? And my mom's sitting there, and she goes, no, not at all. And I'm sitting there shaking my head, yes. And the 2 ladies that were in the room with us immediately saw something that was wrong. My mom looked at me, and I looked at my mom. My mom was just dumbfounded. My mother had no idea what was going on when I was living in that house. And so I ended up going to the hospital, and this was the first, or not the hospital, the group home, and that was the first time I felt the love of God, you guys. Like, I mean that so passionately, because I had never been loved this way by anyone. These people that didn't know me, they loved me. They didn't even know why I was in there at first. They didn't care. They still loved me. They saw a light in me that I couldn't see, that I pushed under all the darkness and all the pain. And so I moved into the house, and these girls had problems like I did. They came in from broken homes. They were in those chains that our families have. Because every family has those chains. My family was full of abuse, full of alcohol, full of sex. And that was getting passed on to me. And when I went in that house, I started to realize, it's not always this way. Not every house is full of this. There's a family that I could actually have. And so I went to church with them. I was doing confirmation. And then I started to act out because I felt so wrong. I felt like I shouldn't be here. This isn't a good environment for me, when it was really the best. I felt so broken that I acted out to the point to where I had to leave. And I went back to live with my mom and my adopted dad. And my mom started to realize that it was my adopted dad who was doing this to me. My adopted dad who kept telling me all these awful lies, who didn't want to see me when I was at the group home, who didn't care how I was actually doing. So we moved up to Cleveland, and I was living with my grandparents, and beginning of freshman year, no one wants to start high school with no friends. Let's be honest, that just sucks. And so I was starting at this really rich, snobby school with all these people that thought they were better than me. And so I went in, and the first thing right off the bat is I started hearing more lies about myself. But I kind of brushed it off because I was in new school, and I knew I was going to find friends eventually. And I ended up finding those friends. And one of my friends was Jewish, and she was telling me about this amazing youth group that she goes to, and how it's every week, and how there's this great community. And so I was like, oh, great, I want to go, I want to be loved. Who wouldn't love me? Trying to be positive at it all. And I went to this group, and I got accepted so fast. They didn't care where I came from. They didn't care where I was then. They cared about who I was going to grow into. And that love made me want to keep coming back. That community showed me they cared. And so after going a few times and them talking to me about Judaism, I was like, oh, wow, so all I have to do is convert to Judaism to be a part of this. And so I kind of fooled myself and pushed all of those feelings I was having down before, stopped searching for Christianity or for that God, and I just turned to Judaism, and I was like, this youth group is my goal. My goal was to fill this youth group and to just be a part of it and have that community. And so that's what I did, and I made the most amazing friends out of this group. But then I also got drawn into the alcohol and the sex that was also there too. And because I wanted to fit in, I started to have sex, and I started to drink with them, and I started to go out and party. And I didn't care, because I didn't care about the effects. I cared about who was loving me and who accepted me for me. And I didn't want to deal with my hurt. I wanted to numb those feelings. I didn't want to deal with my past or any of the pain that I was still feeling. Because every day, it just started happening again. My family would make little snarky comments at me about my past. And so this went on up until my senior year, where I was a part of the youth group. I was so determined to be Jewish because of this youth group. And then on my senior year, I started to withdraw from everyone. My feelings finally took hold of me. That depression I was feeling for all those years, it finally came out. So I took myself out of every situation. I was a photojournalist. I was on our school newspaper. I stopped it. I immediately withdrew from the class. And then I was a part of this youth group. I was a leader. I had led so many girls under me, and I got them to see the light that was in them, and I stopped doing it. And the boys that I was with, I was more focused about having sex with them than about them caring about who I really was. My family, that wasn't important. Even though I lived in the same house, every day, 2 words got said to me. And so that pain just got deeper and deeper, and I didn't talk to a single soul about it. And so I thought I could just numb everything and still feel happy, but it wasn't happiness, you guys. That was fakeness. And that depression ate me alive every single day. And so we're going to watch a video by Dr. Brene Brown, and this is a researcher that she researched vulnerability. And that's the thing I'm most scared of. I'm going to be completely honest, you guys. I don't want to be vulnerable because, me being up here right now, this is vulnerability. I'm shaking on the inside, to be honest. And so it's it scares me because the more I'm vulnerable, the more I get hurt. But what you guys need to know is that when you're standing up for yourself and you're being vulnerable and you're being brave, You're going to get hurt sometimes, but it's you that's important. As long as you're fighting for yourself and fighting for your feelings, that's what matters. So we're going to watch the video. So after I graduated high school in 2011, I ended up getting kicked out of my grandparents' house because I withdrew so much from my family, and my family couldn't handle it. And so I moved down to Austin for the first time that summer. And I was kind of soul searching, so I did like some different jobs here and there, but I really didn't know what my purpose was. And then I ended up moving to Missouri. And when I was in Missouri, my family, they call it the like kind of the Bible Belt of America because there's like churches every 50 feet. And and so I was dating someone at the time that was a worship leader. And in my mind, I really didn't understand why you had to have someone called a worship leader. And so I went to all these different youth groups with my boyfriend, and I was going, and I went one night. It was the last night I was going to be there before I left town, and the pastor came up to me, and he goes, "Hi, my name is da-da-da." I was like, "Hi, my name's Julie." He goes, "Where are you from?" So I listed off every single city that I had lived in. And he looks at me, and he goes, "That's not what I'm talking about." I go, "Okay." And he goes, "I want to know where you're from spiritually." And so this question took me back because no one ever asked me that before. And so I listed off all these denominations because I was like really confused. And so he was like, "Okay, well, it's nice to meet you," and walked away. Didn't even explain anything, just walked away. And so it made me stop, and I was like, wait, like, what do I really believe in? And it made me think. And so the pastor went on to give his sermon, and everything he was saying about sex, drugs, alcohol, pushing away, being vulnerable, all these things affecting your life spoke to me. Literally, I was sitting there on the edge of my seat, like listening with a passion. And then before I left, he was praying for me, and everything he was saying was things that I had thought to myself, things I doubted myself about, things I told myself, awful things. And he was saying them. I hadn't told a single person. And I broke down crying, and I ran out of the church because I couldn't believe in this higher power that would know everything about me. And so 2 days later, I went to Ohio University. And this university is literally in the middle of nowhere, Ohio. And they are known for partying and just getting crazy. And so the first night I was there, I went crazy. I finally let myself go. I was this Julie that I always wanted to be, except for not in the party scene. But I let myself go. I finally said things I've always wanted to say. And then the next day, I started to realize that there had to be boundaries because of the ways I affected my friendships. Friends I lost because I let myself go so badly because I was holding everything in. And so I kind of tried to set up those boundaries by going to the gym all the time. And I lived with 3 girls, so it was kind of hard to go from living all by yourself in a room and then living with 3 other people. And I started working out all the time when one night I came home and no one was in my dorm room. Very rare. And all of a sudden this feeling of loneliness just washed over me. And I realized I literally have no one. I am on my own. Every single family member that loved me left me. All my friends, I ruined those friendships because I stopped talking to them. And I didn't have a boyfriend. I wasn't dating anyone because I broke up with my boyfriend before I left Missouri. And so I was like, I'm so alone. I have no one. What am I going to do? If I'm here and I'm trying to fight for myself, but I have no one in my corner, is it even worth fighting for? And then in literally 2 seconds flat, I fell to the floor crying. And I gave my life over to God because I realized that this God was always there for me. And that is something that the pastor told me, was that he was always there for me, and he's always going to be there. No matter how much I fought it, he was always going to be there. And tears were coming down my face, and I couldn't believe this because why would someone love me? Someone that was so hurt, someone that was so broken and couldn't stand to even look at herself in the mirror. And so I finally called up my aunt and uncle, and I told them that I gave my life over to God, and I ended up leaving Ohio University and going to live with them to try and figure out what being a Christian was really all about. And I couldn't really find it out there, so I came down here to live with my mom. And my mom told me, just walk down the street, you might find a church eventually. And so I found this church, and I found some amazing friends. You guys, like, these people that I've met with Austin Lit, our college group, they have helped me to see who God really is. And when I say that, I don't mean like this person that's there and we just acknowledge him when we want to. I mean someone that loves you through every tough situation. Someone that knows what you're going through, but isn't physically there. Not, when I say physically, I mean like if I'm standing next to Caitlin physically. But he's there, he's wrapping his arm around you, and he knows what you're going through. And I think that was the hardest thing for me to accept. Because as a kid, crying in a closet, scared of what's going to happen to me that night, I couldn't believe that a God was there in those times, that he loved me. But you guys have to know that there's so much healing that came from that. And I'm not perfect. You know, I wish I could sit here and say that I gave my life over to God. I'm perfect. There's no struggles. And that every day I wake up and I'm so happy to be here. But it is a struggle to wake up from brokenness and to see the light every day. But the thing that keeps me going is God. My roommates sometimes, they're not the easiest people to live with. My friends, they're not the easiest people to be with. My family, they're not easy. But you know what? It's okay because I have God on my side. And I know I'm not an easy person either, so let me just say that too. And so, I mean, that was something that keeps me going because I'm not perfect. I mess up, you guys. I had so much anger inside of me from all of this hurt and this brokenness and no one loving me and no one being there that I blew up on all of my friends and it was like every day. I took my anger out for all the hurt that I was going through on every other person. And I couldn't look at myself because if I looked at the anger I was dealing with, then it wasn't worth it. And so I ended up figuring out I need therapy. And I ended up going into therapy in November of this past year. And I started realizing and identifying these things that would tick something off inside of me. And when I say that, I mean like something that would make me feel a little hurt, and then I would block it and push this person away even more. And then I started identifying those feelings and identifying the problems and the reactions I was having. And then I was like, okay, well, what's the next step? To get this healing, you have to identify the problem. Then you have to identify what feeling you're having with it. And then you need to go to someone else and talk about it. That other person was my therapist because it was someone that's not going to tell anyone else about your problems. So there's not going to be any rumors about it. And it was someone that I knew I could trust no matter what. And I started realizing more and more about all these different problems I was having. And then it hit me hard when I realized that I never had that person to lead me. This person that wanted to always be there and protect me. That was this father role, okay? And so I say that because it is so hard sometimes to put people on a pedestal and sit here and say, this person is my hero. This person is what they stand for, and that's what I'm going to stand for. Because no one's perfect, you guys. And so what a father should look like and what they actually look like are two different things. We're going to play a video right now from the movie Courageous, and they're going to talk about a father. Some of us watched this video and we were like, that doesn't apply to me. And some of us watched this video and we're like, strongly moved by it. Now let me just say this. This video says what a father should be like. And our fathers, most of our physical fathers are not this way, okay? They're not perfect. No one's perfect. And so I want you guys to be in your small groups and to talk about what does a father in your life look like? And if you have that role model, that father figure, talk about who they are and why they are that to you, okay? Because this is something that's big because that person provides you with guidance and love in a way to help you see that you are cared about. So the beginning of my testimony started out, I was always looking for the perfect guy, ... Turns out he was always looking for me. And this is something that I want you guys to know so much. God is searching for you. He is seeking you out because each and every single one of you have something that he created you for. You each have your own passion, your own identity, and your own purpose on this world, okay? Because some of you have skills that I can't even do. Like Juan, I can't drum like him. I wish I could sometimes. Like I can't skateboard. I'd like fall on my face. But you know what? I'm an amazing cook, and that's something that God's blessed me with. And that's something that I see. I see that sometimes I'm not perfect, but God's also blessed me with so much, and he's always seeking you guys out. And each and every one of you are amazing. John Acuff, which is a speaker, said, you have the thumbprint of God on you, which makes you not average. Okay? And so I'm so happy that I got to come out of my corner tonight and really share my testimony with you guys.